It's way past time I dispense some indiscriminate justice!
G'day guys, DUCKVILLELOL here. We're going to watch something a little bit different today. This one is a little bit off the beaten track as opposed to what I would normally put up, but I'm going to try and do a few more things like this. This replay is going to be brought to us by the number 2. We're going to have a 2v2 featuring some lower level players, probably around about the silver gold level, I believe, if I remember the details correctly of this replay. Speaking of the replay, thank you very much to Malmosa here, who sent this one in all the way from Canada, so that's come on the boat all the way from Canada down to Australia, and we'll have a look at this one today. So just before we get too far into it, we'll have a quick look. His teammate here in the red, the fashionable red, is Pork, as a Zerg here. Their opponents over on the other side of Scorched Haven, Acyd, the purple Protoss here, and the Teal Terran known as Trichrome. Teal Terran Trichrome, cool. We're going to see some interesting 2v2 action here. Now this one is going to be, I'm just going to block off everyone so I don't get spammed and that sort of crap. This is going to be more of a look on analysis of the particular games here. We're not going to look at it from a really hardcore analysis for the players themselves. We're going to look at this more along the lines of 2v2s, how you can 2v2, and just some little things to help you benefit yourself when you are playing 2v2s. Now first thing, probably one of the biggest things, unless you are incredibly confident with your micro, is to generally always try and wall off with, no matter which race you are. Of course, if you're Zerg, that's your own little shindig you're going to have to work out, because of course you can't. But as a Terran or as a Protoss, you really should wall off. So that's one minor thing which I will just sort of attest here for Malmosa, is that you really want to wall off there. What is that little I don't know, some weird firefly thing floating around. Anyway, as you can see here, Trichrome walling off quite nicely, and it looks as if we just grab Pork and have a quick look, he doesn't get to see what's going on here. So this could be just a decoy as to some sort of 2-rack, something like that. But he does get inside here and gets to see what is happening here in the base of Acyd. So, and in fact, he's actually going to steal the gas. This is something which, you know, can be a bit interesting to do. I'm not really sure if it's the best idea in a 2v2. Generally, for those of you who haven't really played too much 2v2, what happens in 2v2 is it is generally a very heavy battle in the early game, between low-level units, Marines, Zealots, and of course Lings and sometimes Roaches. You'll see just a lot of that sort of stuff, because effectively, if you can wipe out one of your opponents, you're pretty much going to win the game. So that's why things generally get really crazy right at the start of the match, and it can be really dependent on how well you actually control your units and if you actually deny scouting. So as you can see here, Trichrome, even though he didn't actually get scouted, he's going to grab an extra 2 racks. So we may be going for just some very heavy Marine play, which I think he might be. He's only got 1 SCV, no, 2 SCVs now on gas, but so that might attest to him actually going for that sort of play. But back to the walling, yeah, it's really great to actually block off so you can deny some scouting, and of course to block cheese. Cheese is incredibly common in team games, especially in 2v2s and 3v3s. I cannot sort of explain how much it actually happens. You think if you're, you know, in Bronze Silver League, you actually get cheesed a lot there in 1v1s. You are nothing compared to 2v2s and 3v3s. It happens so often. You see things like cannons, you see things like proxy gates, proxy racks. What else have you got? You got Reapers from time to time. Some people get a little bit daring and pull out the old Reaper, Reaper Rush there with a couple of Reapers and come in and snipe all your stuff. That can be really annoying. But ways to counter that, of course, as I mentioned, walling off, which is really great. Making sure that you're scouting. One thing which Pork is going to have to work on from this perspective is actual scouting. As you can see here, this area here is very common for cannons. A lot of Protoss players do come in and chuck down cannons in these sorts of areas here where you wouldn't normally scout. You really need to be careful in team games, and especially 2v2s, of making sure that you're checking out for cheese, because it can be really dangerous if someone does pull it off, because your teammate can't always help. So on to the next part. As I was going to mention, one way you can counter cheese as well, apart from scouting and apart from walling off, is to actually get your Zerg partner, if you are partnered with a Zerg, to actually get some early speedlings. I'm talking early as in 10, maybe 11 pool, something like that, just to make sure you get the lings out early, grab speed if possible, and just try and transition in from that, just to make sure you've got some early defenses, because as I said, early attacks are effectively the key of team games. Going in with these low tier units, of course for Protoss, he's sort of gotten a good mix here, so we're not gonna see too much of a low level mix from the Protoss player. As you can see, he's grabbing a Twilight Council, which is good to see. Pork scouting in to see all of this, which is really good, assuming the Blink Stalker's there. Just always be careful not to assume things as well, because he may be getting Blink Stalkers, he may be getting DT somewhere, he might have a pylon somewhere, so you do need to be aware of that, and not just assume for that sort of contingency coming. Now, Pork is going to need to grab an Overseer. This is one of the important things about having a Zerg on your team, apart from this, getting the Speedlings out for some map control, is to get an Overseer pretty quickly, just so you can counter any sort of the DTs, as we mentioned, or the Banshees, just to make sure that those sort of things can be countered quite easily, and that'll save the Terran from having to actually use any of his energy on scans, and instead he can pop down a few mills and make sure that he's keeping up in the economy stake. Speaking of economy, this is generally where the team games will differ quite a lot, and as we can see on the map here, it looks as if Team 2 is actually going to send out a little bit of an attack force here. Not too much from the Protoss, but he certainly does have a lot of Stalkers there in the back. We're going to get an engagement in the middle. Pork sending out his roaches, and they are going to get picked off. A couple of them have been caught with their pants down. They are going to try and retreat, and we'll probably see if Malmosa could actually come in and help out. We're just waiting for a bit of micro here from Malmosa. It looks as if he's just going to wait here at the front there, and now he's going to go in. We're going to have a little bit of a battle here. We'll move the income tab because that was in the way. We do have some units stuck at the back here for Malmosa. A little bit of micro just to move some of these ones up would be really great. Then he can get everything into battle, because if he had everything, this battle would have ended a lot earlier, and a lot less of the units would have been lost for Team 1. So just a couple of little things here. As we mentioned, this is sort of the silver gold sort of league, so that's all good. We're all here to learn. We're all here to, you know, find out how to do this sort of thing. Now, as I was saying before, what was I saying before? Oh yeah, with Zerg, you need your partner to grab an Overseer pretty quickly. As we can see here, it does look as if Charge is actually going to be the play of the day from Acyd, so we're not going to be too worried about anything invisible coming down and raining on the parade for Team 1, but it is certainly something to keep in mind as a Zerg player. It is definitely your prerogative to, once you grab the lair, to grab some an Overseer to make sure you're helping out your team. Now, one thing we will see here is a counterattack from Team 1. There's not really too much here for Pork, considering he lost a lot of his roaches, and he does have, of course, a lot of this support here from Malmosa. They go to engage here in the middle. It looks like there may be quite a decent force here from Team 2, but I don't think it's enough. This is a great little line here from Malmosa with all of his Marine Marauder combo here. They do take a lot of hits, and a lot of them have actually died, but it looks as if they may still be able to push in. We're going to need to see some great micro here from Acyd, perhaps from his teammate as well, but it looks as if only a few Marines are coming in, and that's not really going to do the job. But now he's pushing through, taking out a lot of pylons. This is really going to hurt in a low-level game when you actually take out pylons. Anything, if you actually take out supply, you can really catch up in terms of the supply, because if you remove those, sometimes the lower-level players don't actually notice that they've actually been supply blocked here, and that could be a real detriment to the way that they respond to your counter-attack, of course, because they can get blocked, and then they cannot respond. Now, we do see here that Malmosa actually took out the Nexus here from Acyd, so that's actually one big other thing about 2v2s and, I suppose, team games in general. It is very, very hard to actually take an expansion unless you actually have, you sort of sacrifice something at the start. A lot of players, what you'll see in team games is actually when people go for this sort of the early attack that Team 2 did, where they sent in the Marine Marauder combo with a few Stalkers, Sentries, and some Zealots as well. That sort of attack is something where you want to expand behind that, but you really need to be on the ball in terms of your macro to make sure that you're expanding and you're actually doing a good job of it. As we can see here on the economy tab, Malmosa sort of, I'm not sure if he's intentionally done it, but either way, he's way behind in his units at the moment. But if you have a quick look at what he's got his stim, he's got his combat shields on his Marines, so they're all buffed up and they've been to the gym, and his Marauders are going to be helping out quite a lot here as well. So whilst he's sacrificed a lot of his economy, they've gained a lot of map control, and they are able to actually shut down the expansion of Team 2. Now, as you can see, after you've done that, after you've got some map control, it is really important to take this expansion, which Malmosa is doing quite well. Now, the push here coming in from Pork, I'm not really sure what he expects to do here. He does take out a pylon, which was covering the cybernetics core, not the greatest place for that cyber, but some force fields are blocking off the attack, so he's not going to get too far in, and it looks as if we're going to have a little bit of a battle here. This siege tank getting picked off quite nicely there by Malmosa, running in there, sniping it. The one key thing to have a look at, if you can see, is the health of these Marauders and the Marines there. Malmosa's sort of starting to fall down there. He's used a lot of stim to take out what he can, but the key thing is they're still containing this team here, and they are gaining a lot of map presence and map control here. And in fact, you know, this could even be a victory if they push in here, because there really is not too much here from Trichrome. He's just sort of sitting here with one tank, as you can see, which will take out a few units, but it's going to go down to those Hydras in the end anyway. However, look, we got a counterattack from Acyd here. Unfortunately, because he lost that Nexus, he hasn't had much to put into probes, so he hasn't spent on any probes at his natural in that regard. He does obviously have a great, well, an oversaturation here at the main, but we're going to see that he's going to be able to send in a lot of units, which he does have here. He's got an Immortal, which is great to see that in the mix, because he's going to need that against these Roaches and the Hydras that are being used by Pork, and also, of course, the Marauders from Malmosa. So we do have a couple of Roaches just sneaking in here. These guys have walked in the front door because all of Acid's forces were actually sitting in the base of Trichrome, so he's now in a lot of trouble here. We do see that he is trying to pump out a Colossus, and the Colossus Extended Thermal Lance is on the way. These Roaches are going to do a bit of damage. They're not really going to do too much further than this. They are going to take out a few of the Zealots, and that is going to be about a game over for that. Now, we're going to need to see an expansion here from Acid pretty quickly, but he's really in trouble in terms of his economy at the moment. There's really not too much left in this main base. So, as we mentioned before, part of playing 2v2 is a lot about getting that early advantage with your early attacks and then expanding behind it. A lot of people will might try and sacrifice the early game instead to try and conquer economy early on. That can work. I'm not saying that doesn't work, but if you actually go for this particular style where you actually go heavy on your military at the start, it will generally be quite favorable to you. So that's how these guys have been going quite well at the moment. They've been doing a great job here. Trichrome now starting to get some tanks out, which will provide this team with a lot of cover to take their expansions. As you can see, we do have one coming along from Acid. We're going to see a command center floating down in a second. Where is it? From, oh no, he's actually building it, my bad. From Trichrome. So they're going to get these expansions up because they are safe for the moment. We do have Corruptors, a nice transition there from Pork. They're going to be able to shoot down the the one Colossus that's here. Not going to be much else use, but there will be more Colossi on the way. As you can see, a little bit of a snipe here coming in to try and snipe off that one Colossus, and he's not going to get too much done. And it looks as if the charge Zealots are doing a great job here, picking off a lot of those Hydras, which was interesting to see. We're going to need to see some more reinforcements here from Malmosa, because this whole group is going to get smashed apart in a second here by the Immortals and the Marauders there. Marauders easily wiping out those Hydras, and the tanks, of course, sitting at the back providing some covering fire. Now, as we can see, the creep spread is going quite nicely here from Pork. However, actually, what he's done is he's actually used the Queen to put down an individual creep tumor each time. Don't do that. You don't want to do that unless you're actually going to be using all of your creep tumor. You are using your creep tumor. Coming down here, you click on C, and then you can actually build another one. As we can see here, if you click on this, you can actually build a secondary creep tumor. But we do have a battle there. Sorry about that. We can see that the Colossus has been picked off. The tanks are in great position, though. A little bit of corruption going down on the tanks, but unfortunately there is nothing there to take advantage of that extra damage that you would be doing to them. And that is pretty much it. So that position has been taken down there by Team 2. So Acid's going to be chasing down these Hydras with his Stalkers. They are a lot faster than the Hydras until they get onto Creep, as we can see here. But once they are on Creep, the Hydras will be able to get away quite swiftly. Now, we do have a little bit of a push, it looks like, coming in from Team 2. There's a lot of tanks here. This could be a lot of trouble here, because there are not many tanks here from Malmosa. He's only got two not sieged up at the moment. Queen, Roaches, and Hydras coming in. Corruptors not doing anything at all. I think those Corruptors are a little bit of an overcompensation for the Colossi. There will, of course, be more Colossi coming in, but they're not really going to do too much here. A tank coming into the battle here. We're going to need to see some more micro from Malmosa. Just going to lose this tank, unfortunately, for nothing really at all. and it looks as if Team 2 is going to be pushing in quite nicely here with the cover from Trichrome. The Stalkers are going to be able to do a nice job, and that will probably be it, because Malmosa is getting a little bit stuck here. If we have a quick look on the resources tab, Malmosa sort of sitting up quite high on his gas, especially for a Terran. Perhaps just a little bit of the macro was being let down. So we do see that the counterattack there from Team 2 was just a nice little maneuver there, and this is probably going to be the end of it, because as we can see, unfortunately Malmosa way behind on his macro and his army count, sitting there with a lowly 37, unfortunately, and Team 1 is going to succumb to this very heavy tank push from Team 2. So what can we take from this is just pretty simply, once you've taken that early lead with your map control and your you sort of move out with your economy, as we saw here, Malmosa grabbed that secondary command center down at the expansion quite soon after they took map control and were holding this area. So what you want to do is try and take advantage of that, of course. So once you've got this command center, get your macro up, get pumping out with some units. If you lose your contain at the front, don't worry about it. If this has to fall back, just let it go. Let it go. It's all good to lose that contain, as long as you don't lose all of your units, which is effectively what happened here. So great win there for Team 2, coming back from what looked to be a pretty tight contain, but unfortunately just some little bit of some macro problems here from Team 1 let them down just a little bit. As you can see, all of these drones unfortunately just being left in the dark there, but they are going to transfer now, but it's just a little bit too late, unfortunately. GG from Malmosa there. We're going to see that game finished up. We'll probably have a look at another 2v2 game once I grab the replay from that one, and we'll have a look and see what else can occur in a 2v2. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed that little cast there. As we said, we're not really looking too hard at high level analysis of this particular game here. Just sort of some low level points to take note of, and hopefully these guys can actually get some wins rolling in their 2s games. So thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.